Coming up, we continue our Res 2023 coverage with an entrepreneur who points out the economic opportunities for tribal nations working in the cannabis industry. Lyla June talks spoken word and protecting sacred sites. Plus, an Indigenous rights advocate is working to root out the causes behind the mental health epidemic in Native communities. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Amirawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. We start today in Miami, Florida, where Indigenous advocates are celebrating the soon return of their relative. Many know Scully Chuckdonot by her stage name Lolita. The orca was captured decades ago off the coast of Washington in the Salish Sea and taken to the Miami Sea Aquarium. Officials say they have now reached a formal and binding agreement to return Scully Chuckdonot to Lummi waters. Her release was led by Indigenous voices and even included NFL team owner Jim Isray.
No, she wants to go home, and I know she has the fire within her on the determination to pull her off. She is special. I mean, just think of the 50-some whales that they caught back in 1970 in that range. All of them died except her, every single one.
Up until 2022, Scully Chuckdonot performed twice a day, year-round at the Miami Sea Aquarium. That was part of the reason Indigenous advocates like Raynell Morris fought for her return. She spoke to ICT last year about the efforts.
It is so important that we all support Indigenous people's efforts to protect and reunify their sacred sites, land, peoples.
Though Scully Chuckdonot's return has been promised, there is no timeline for exactly when it will happen. So far, ICT has confirmed that her home will include 15 acres of protected waters. In Las Vegas, thousands of Native people have convened for a major conference on economic development. ICT's Mackenzie Allen Charmley reports.
It's the nation's largest and longest-running Indian country business event. The 2023 Reservation Economic Summit kicked off its conference start at Caesars Palace. Featuring tribal leaders, members of Congress, and top CEOs, Res offers unique access to high-caliber networking.
The theme for Res this year is empowering for generations, and the summit intends to do just that.
We're really glad everybody's here. We're expecting a record number, close to 4,000, if not exceeding that, of participants. And it's about empowering.
For many in attendance, Res means opportunity for growth.
I'm here to meet a lot of people. I'm speaking, I believe, on 2 panels. One of them in particular is the SSBCI program, the State Small Business Credit Initiative with U.S. Department of Treasury. And we're one of the tribes that has a larger allocation, so I'm here to kind of delve more into that and a lot of partnerships.
From panels and networking sessions to art and trade booths, economic prospects can be found in every room.
I love meeting people. I love engaging with people and talking with people, because without that, you know, you have nothing, right? You can't believe how many people I just talked to just standing in line, and how many people needed what I have to offer, right? It was just standing in line.
In the homelands of the Southern Paiute people in Las Vegas, Nevada, Mackenzie Allen Charmley, ICT News.
After nearly 2 centuries, a tribal nation is reclaiming stewardship of a bison herd. The Yuchi tribe of Oklahoma recently received 5 bison from the city of Denver, Colorado. It marks the first time in almost 200 years tribal citizens will interact with the animal. An annual Yuchi celebration called the Green Corn Ceremony includes a dance honoring the relationship between people and bison. For generations, it was passed on by people who had never actually seen one. Now that will no longer be the case.
It's important to get them back into their home spaces, get them back on the land. We Yuchi people, we're still here, and the buffalo are still here, and it's important to reconnect.
The animals come from 2 conservation herds maintained by Denver Parks and Recreation. Since 2018, the city has donated 85 surplus bison to native tribes instead of selling them at auction. City officials said shipments will continue through 2030. An Indigenous entrepreneur is adding her testimony against a bill in Montana that would ban the social media app TikTok. For Mandan Hidatsa Arikara Nation citizen Shauna Whitebear, the move would result in the loss of thousands of dollars in revenue. The bill, which is currently under consideration, goes beyond just state employees who have the app downloaded on company devices. The potential app block includes everyone in Montana. Lawmakers say TikTok is a threat to privacy and national security. Whitebear currently has nearly 74,000 followers. The Bozeman, Montana leather worker owns Whitebear moccasins and says banning TikTok would considerably hinder her sales.
It would limit my access to a larger clientele. So yes, I have a lot of customers that are here in Montana and in the surrounding states. But what's so cool about the algorithm everybody's talking about, it reaches all over the world.
The bill is now in its second House committee meeting and is a vote away from the governor's desk. Well, the highly anticipated film Killers of the Flower Moon finally has a release date. The major motion picture is set in the 1920s and illustrates the murders of Osage Nation citizens known historically as the Reign of Terror. It is directed by Martin Scorsese and is based on the best-selling book written by David Gran. The film, set in Oklahoma, includes Hollywood stars like Leonardo DiCaprio, Brendan Fraser, and Blackfeet actor Lily Gladstone. Many Osage people were hired as actors and for the production crew. Killers of the Flower Moon will be released in limited theaters on Friday, October 6th, then widely released on Friday, October 20th. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. A 2016 study found that over half of Indigenous people meet the criteria for at least one mental health condition over the course of their lifetime. Santee descendant and former ICT contributor Sasha Houston Brown is working on the root cause of this and other Indigenous health issues. She joins us today to discuss her work at the Center for Prevention at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota. Welcome to the show, Sasha.
Great to be here. My name's Sasha Houston Brown, and I work as a senior communications and advocacy consultant for Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota. And yeah, my work in communications really, I would say, centers around health equity and racial equity. And my work with the center, I think, is really about getting to these root causes of inequitable health outcomes that we see not only in Indigenous communities, but other communities, and really working to ensure that all peoples have the opportunity to attain their highest level of health.
I opened with sharing that Indigenous people, based on the data, could face at least one mental health condition over the course of their lifetime. Tell us what exactly that data means and what other kinds of, glaring statistics that you can share.
Absolutely. So, some of the most recent data is really jarring. In addition to the statistic you referenced, Native people report experiencing psychological distress 2.5 times more than the general population in the United States. And we also have the highest rates of suicide out of any racial or ethnic group in the U.S. And, another stat that just came out, I think this was 2022, was that according to government estimates, nearly 20% of Native adults have experienced some form of mental illness. Oh, go ahead.
So far, what are you finding in terms of what the root causes are for these alarming numbers?
I think that anytime we look at statistics, it's really important to put them in context and to look at some of those root causes. So, I think for me, the way I contextualize it is really looking at root causes such as trauma, racism, poverty, and colonization, right? There really can't be a full discussion of Native mental health without understanding how colonization continues to impact people's mental health today, and also the concept of historical trauma. Um, you know, Native people, as we know, have been subject to so much trauma and violence and oppression, and that actually impacts us, really down to our DNA. And that really goes from one generation to the next. And that trauma that gets passed down is what we call historical trauma. So even if you didn't directly experience it, having a parent or even a grandparent who maybe experienced something traumatic like boarding school or the 60s scoop, they were removed from their home, that really carries lasting impacts when it comes to mental health and overall well-being.
What kinds of lasting impacts are we seeing? Is it, young people who face things like anxiety or depression? How do we actually see this historical trauma playing out?
Yeah, I think exactly what you were saying. High rates of overall anxiety, depression, self-injury, other forms of mental distress along with substance abuse. And I think something that really plays into this as well is that for I think of my father, who's a boarding school survivor. He recently passed, but something that he always told me was that for his generation, in a lot of ways, secrecy was a form of survival. You had to be tough. You had to not talk about your pain, maybe, in order to get by in these institutions. And I think what we see now and what he recognized later in his life is that that is also really harming us. That secrecy, holding on to that pain and that trauma, it is really creating just a plethora of so many different, adverse health outcomes. And it's so important for us to be able to have open and honest discussions as family and community and as nations about what we've experienced, and be able to be vulnerable and begin to have conversations and start talking about these things.
We have a very short time left, but I do want to make sure that folks listening to this interview can take something away. So what are the resources, if they're feeling some of the things that you're describing, that they can reach out to?
Yeah, I think, a lot of tribes, a lot of whether it's IHS or urban Indian health clinics are really leading the way when it comes to creating culturally competent resources. We really hope that people know that they're not alone, that there are resources in place, and also lean into not only traditional forms of maybe talk therapy, but recognize the power of community, culture, and ceremony to support their journey as well.
Well, Sasha Houston Brown, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cannabis is a growing industry as legalization continues to expand across the country. CEO of Cann-digenous and the Indigenous Cannabis Industry Association, Rob Pero, says this industry can bring great opportunity to tribal communities. ICT's Paris Wise has this interview with Rob at Res 2023 in Las Vegas.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for joining us here today at Res. Can you tell us a little bit about your business, Candigenous?
Yes, Candigenous is a cannabis company born out of Wisconsin. We jumped into the industry in 2019 to really create a pathway showing that point of entry to this industry could be for anyone. We worked with our American Indian Chamber in Wisconsin to put a business plan together to do a hemp grow for the purpose of development of CBD products. And since then, we've built a brand around it. We sell products all over the country. We've helped other brands go to market. And then getting into that space has allowed me to kind of work in some advocacy parts, which in turn helped me, kind of instigated me to develop ICIA last year.
So what was the interest, what was the spark that got you into this?
I'm passionate about cannabis, and I've been consumer of cannabis, for 20 plus years. It's always been a good, safe space for me, to self-medicate. I've seen a lot of things in my day with it being, federally illegal, where people's lives have been, ruined and flipped upside down. I've also seen where, and heard the stories of tribes trying to pursue opportunities in the market with, repercussions there. So there's a lot of apprehension around it. But for me, I knew that if there was an opportunity to get into the space, I was going to take it.
Right. There is still a lot of apprehension. People are still a little hesitant to step into this industry, particularly because of the connection between Native communities and substance abuse. What would you say to that barrier?
Yes, there's definitely issues that our communities face, and each communities have to collectively look at those, on their own and figure out what's best, for a path forward for them. But in regards to substance abuse, what we look at is data and building data sets, and not just using data sets that are already out there, but building data sets that are by Indigenous, for Indigenous, that understand our own mortality and our own health issues. And also, looking at the numbers of the states where marijuana has become legal and seeing the dramatic drop in opioid use, which leads to less substance abuse in those communities. So we're seeing proof of it out there. We just have to do our own quantitative data on our end for our own communities.
And you're on a panel here at Res called Advancing Sovereignty in Tribal Hemp and Cannabis. What are you excited to share in that conversation?
What's really exciting, the opportunities for our tribal communities specifically to utilize sovereignty around, legalization and how they're going to regulate this plant medicine in their communities. Also around building codes, around industrial hemp and tribal housing, about opportunities they have to be innovative in the housing space, around climate smart agriculture, and really kind of instigating us as being farmers again and being self-sustaining for our communities. It's really limitless. When I think about hemp or cannabis sort of as this iceberg, and industrial is this massive chunk moving across, and then we see these little ice cubes in medicinal and rec, but there's really a much bigger picture that we haven't seen yet and still yet to be discovered.
And since we're in Vegas, can you talk about some of the parallels you might be seeing in the cannabis industry that we might have seen in the past for gaming?
Yeah, I mean, it gets brought up often, the parallels between IGA and ICIA, and why IGA was needed, obviously, was to put regulation in around gaming so that tribes could have an opportunity to be in that space with peace of mind of knowing that the state or the federal government wasn't going to come in and take that away. So what they did was they got organized, and now you see what that has become, years and years later, with what a strong presence and national presence IGA is. That's what we want to do. That's a beautiful model for us, and we know that the models that IGA and gaming used in regards to compacting, that's not a perfect science for cannabis and hemp, but the overall idea of the tribes and the tribal businesses and us as individual community members getting organized for a greater cause absolutely is a parallel, and we're proud to be considered in that same space.
Can you walk us through some of the growth that you've already seen in the industry and where you see it continuing?
We're just seeing tribes and tribal businesses knowing that there's others participating in the space, knowing they have access to more resources, be bold. They're taking action. They're taking action in states and in utilizing sovereignty where the state may not be legal, but a tribe now is going medicinal. So you're seeing steps taken with more resources to back up that peace of mind of making sure that they're taking the right steps at the right time. So we just have more data and assets, kind of in our quiver, and I think we're just building confidence as we go. And there's also something in Native country that's called FOMO, fear of missing out, and we've kind of built this network where people can get a glimpse of what everyone else has going on, and it's encouraging or giving them a bit of FOMO that they better get their act together and be proactive about this space.
Can you give us some of those figures actually? Do you have any on hand about in terms of production or even a dollar value and how this space has grown?
Well, I was just at the hemp conference in Colorado Springs last week, and this is estimated to be a $3 trillion industry, and we're talking trillion, and that's industrial, medicinal, and rec. So it's hard to put a number, as we know, inflation and all those numbers change. All those numbers change, and the market can fluctuate. but the opportunity is really limitless, in my opinion, when you think about all the different applications that we can utilize industrial hemp for, and developing workforce, building the economy, elevating our own talent, showcasing innovation in the space, generating carbon credits for our tribes, having a proprietary intertribal commerce market where tribes are now trading with tribes all across the world, on their own terms, with their own regulations. So it's really limitless.
How many tribes are involved in this industry?
That's a great question. Out of the 574 federally recognized tribes in the U.S., there's 44 currently participating, and that's a very soft number. There could be more as we speak. We know that there's RFPs and feasibility studies coming out every day as tribes continue to investigate entry into the industry.
Well, Rob Harrow, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Lyla June's art takes many different forms. She is a writer, scholar, and community organizer. Ahead of her performance at Cahokia in downtown Phoenix, Arizona last week, I asked her about her latest projects. Lyla June, it's so nice to sit down with you. You're in Phoenix for an event. Tell us what you'll perform.
Well, tonight I'm gonna perform my oldies but goodies, probably. I've only been in the music game for 7 years. So I think the number one is All Nations Rise. People really seem to gravitate to that song, which is about, having all of our communities embrace our beauty, shed those lies that we're, primitive or lower class citizens, because we're not. We're beautiful, we're intelligent, we're innovative, and all of our sciences in our communities can save the world right now. So that's what that song's about. I do some hip hop, I do some EDM, I do some spoken word. I wear a lot of hats in the music world, so just gonna bring them all out, and it's gonna be so beautiful to do it alongside my Dream Warriors family, who is just gonna add more color to the whole experience.
You mentioned you've been in the music game for 7 years. What inspired you to get started?
Well, I started out as a spoken word poet when I was 14, 20 years ago. It always makes me feel old thinking about that. But poetry usually naturally evolves into hip hop, and then you get curious about acoustic guitar, and you get curious about EDM. So I think it's just wanting to tell our stories. As a journalist, that it's so important to speak our own narratives. And the beautiful thing about music is you get to do it in a way that spreads rapidly, because it's through a song. It's not like a book that sits on a shelf that nobody reads, although a lot of people do read our books, but it's a song that is able to travel through the community quickly, and I think that's the strength in music and what drew me to it.
You mentioned using science. Indigenous people can use science to save the world. Tell us more about that.
Well, I just finished my PhD, which was a heck of a process, and so I have that side of me too, and it was all about our traditional land management techniques and the ways in which our nations across the continent were taking care of the water, taking care of the soil, taking care of the fire, burning the land intentionally, taking care of the habitats, and even augmenting habitats from scratch, so that more buffalo could exist, more salmon could exist, more chestnuts could exist, etc. So I think that obviously when a colonizer comes to you, he wants to destroy every shred of dignity you think you have. And just because that's what they say about us, that we don't have sciences, does not mean that's true. Of course it's going to be a lie. We had huge, flourishing civilizations. Right here in Phoenix was a huge network of dams, causeways, irrigation that people were using to create this huge, flourishing city. And Phoenix is just squatting on top of an ancient indigenous city. And so they want to cover up the ingenuity of our ancestors. They want to cover up the grandeur of our civilizations. They want to pretend like we didn't have the most exact astronomies in the world, which the Mayans had a more precise science of the stars than Europe did. So they want to cover up how brilliant we were because then it can be like, oh, well, we killed them all. It doesn't really matter because they didn't have any culture anyways. So we're bringing that back out and we're correcting that narrative.
March is Women's History Month, and that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. To you, what does it mean?
Yeah, well, and you probably will hear all Native people say every day is Women's Day. You know, every day we have to give our thanks to Mother Earth for giving us life. And as you know, we're very matrilineal people oftentimes. Dene people, we get our last names from our mothers, not from our fathers. From our clans comes from our mother. And so every day is a day to honor women as Dene people. Our number one deity is a woman, changing woman, who then becomes white shell woman. She has a duality to her. And so, but I do love that we have this month. I know there's some critiques that it sort of was started by non-POC women back in the day, and that it had always excluded POC women. So I'm glad that we as POC women are kind of coming back at it and taking our place within this month. But yeah, I think it's a beautiful time to remind people that every month is Women's Month.
Well, Lyla June, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, sister.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.